And action, and welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 189, isn't it? Is it? I guess it is.
It is.
And today is 25th of November. We're recording this one business day earlier than typically, because typically we record on Monday, but we're recording now on Friday because next week is the ISVs, so the European SharePoint Office 365 National Conference in Copenhagen. So that's Monday is the workshop day, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is the actual conference. Now, if we all be there, I will be there, say hi as we're walking around on the streets. Waldek, you will not be there, unfortunately.
I will not be there. You will be there. I will be here.
Yeah, we'll take. Well, that's how we split.
If you're
scale.
not there, if you're here, say hi.
Yes, exactly. Yes. In the PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest in Microsoft 365. we also have a visitor on the weekly show as well. This time it was Brett Lonsdale, and Brett works in the Lightning Tools, UK-based ISV, who's been building actually solutions for Microsoft 365 or for SharePoint First in on-prem since 2007, was it?
7?
I think it was.
Yeah, I think they started their trading company in 2003. I guess.
Yeah, 2003. Yes,
yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That was a really good discussion. We recorded that yesterday. Thank you, Brett, on that. But kind of like that on the journey of how the cloud explodes and what are the opportunities within the partner ecosystem for ISVs. And also, there was quite a lot of interesting nuances related on their offerings, because they are building the stuff using SharePoint Framework, which is not only obviously for SharePoint, even though the name implies on that, but the benefits of using SharePoint Framework, which was actually kind of interesting to get it out, say it out loud by a partner, because you can use the SharePoint Framework is hosted in a customer tenant. So the compliance, the security, everything else is like, well, it's not a problem. So there's no challenges related on that. That's a good discussion with Brett on that. Good reminder on that we should maybe explain this more more openly, though. What are the different options in Microsoft 365 for our ecosystem? In the PnP Weekly, we always cover the articles as well. So hashtag PnP Weekly in Twitter. Twitter is still a thing. Is that a right way of saying that? What's your prediction, by the way, on Twitter before we go to the interview?
So what I've already seen is that many folks have moved to Mastodon, and it's interesting to see like the different way people communicate on Mastodon versus Twitter, right? And maybe that depends on folks I follow, maybe that depends on the algorithm, but in Twitter is more like, to me, it's going more towards what you see a lot on Reddit, which is the snarky, sarcastic nature of folks, whereas on Mastodon it's more like, it feels like more a understanding and welcoming experience. So it's really interesting, like how will that evolve and to what point it will stick. But it's really great, like depending what you're after, you might want to choose one or the other. Yeah.
And we can also see a clear uptake on the LinkedIn usage. So because I can see a lot of additional engagement and actions and reactions and posting as well. So it's an interesting to see. Personally, I really like Twitter. I like the idea of, I still remember, like, whenever the pandemic situation in 2010, 2020, I followed the situation of Australian GP practices.
2010.
Is it 2020? For example, following on real time what's happening across the world, because I still remember so vividly having one of those moments like Sunday or Saturday nighttime, and you're following, is the GP in Australia happening or not? And you could follow actually the feed of people walking into the gates of the GP, and are they getting in? Are they not getting in? What's the communication? And I love that full access in the information, and that's why the
real-time access to it.
Everybody can get easily involved as long as the country doesn't really limit the internet connectivity. But it's still, I love that mental mindset. So I'm crossing fingers that hopefully within a few months we'll be back in normal in Twitter, because
there's also this other interesting aspect that we've experienced a lot around the war in Ukraine, right? Like the disinformation campaign by both sides trying to influence
Yeah.
Well, yeah, yes and no, right? Because if you rely on info and you cannot not discern which one is true, which one isn't, then you're going to act on things that are false.
True.
Right?
But again,
so,
that's not just Twitter. That's even the news medias and everything else. They typically pick a side, and then they're being used part of the channel of the whatever. So it's not like in the current world. Now we're really heading to the politics. This is interesting. But not in the current world of communications. It's who can you trust? Who's the trustworthy?
Well, that's exactly the point, right? I mean, we've seen all the work, going back and forth about Twitter verified and official and all of that, going back and forth on decisions and choices and what does it mean. And it isn't an easy thing, apparently, right? And I mean, there's so even on Mastodon, right? There are specific instances meant for journalists to be able to actually prove, right, that they are them and that they are the ones who report.
But the journalists they pick a side as well. So they say it's not like you're verified and you are a verified news whatever company, and that's
and always
always
you carry over the truth, right? It's always perspective, and so
and that I mean that's.
But there are folks who really do a or a good job trying to stay with the facts and really explain the facts, but not really add a lot of their opinions, right? And there's also one example of that is I don't know the lady's name, but she is the one who reports a lot around COVID for the last few years, like really helping folks to understand like these are the facts. This is not my opinion. These are the facts. Like there is a research. These are the facts. This is where we stand, right? Yeah. So kind of like that is an interesting perspective to get and to find these few folks who really try to stick to the facts as opposed to who push their opinions and agenda.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why. Well, again, having that full freedom, free access information, I just really love that. But then you need to be thoughtful on, okay, so is this with an agenda? Yeah. Is this pushing on what I did?
Exactly.
Now, that was an interesting, small
intro,
detour. But let's actually jump on the interview with Brett. That was a really funny and nice discussion. So let's jump in there and come back on the articles right after that.
Yeah.
Welcome, Brett Lonsdale on the PnP Weekly. So good to have you on the show. We were just before we started recording, we were just having a discussion. You were here in the episode 76, which was on 23rd of March 2020, which is quite a traumatic date, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's actually come back on the pandemic and what has happened. And also, it's actually what you said when we started recording, that 2 days after that, you went to complete lockdown in UK, which is interesting. But before we go there, can you do a quick intro? Who are you and what do you do for a living? You're clearly an MVP, or maybe those are fake on your background.
These are fake. There's one that I haven't hung up yet. But yeah, absolutely. So I am a Microsoft 365 Apps and Services MVP. I think I got that right. It's under the third change. Yep. So that's for 5 years running. So extremely grateful for that. It's been tremendous being an MVP and so on. And there's lots of things that we do for the community which we still do today. And I'd like to talk about some of those as well, because they've been pretty special. There's a great story around something we're doing with Collab Days and the National Museum of Computing here in the UK. Introduction to me. So my name is Brett Lonsdale. I'm based in the UK. I own a company called Lightning Tools. And when we were twiddling our thumbs in the pandemic as well, we also started another company called Enlightening, which is actually a company that offers coaching around the Microsoft 365 platform as well. So not quite training and not quite consultancy, it's kind of guidance. So we spend some time with customers and find out what their needs are. It might be building a Power App or even a BI dashboard, something along those lines. And we help steer them in the right direction, mostly using Microsoft material. So we're not sort of reinventing the wheel or anything, but we're telling them what they should be learning and why they should be learning it. And then, getting them to build
they
their
will
solutions.
Be enlightened, right?
They'll be enlightened, yes, yes. And of course, that's spelled the same way as Lightning Tools as well. So it's just to add confusion. So yeah, we've been doing that, which is going well, and that's not just my company. That's actually a joint project with Sandy Usia, who's worked with Lightning Tools for over 10 years as well. She's also an MVP, but in the business application space. So she does a lot of the Power App stuff and Power Automate and so on. Whereas I kind of carry on with the SharePoint Teams sort of area. So yeah, it's all good. And Viva's sort of coming into my remit as well, and I'm really enjoying that journey as well at the moment. So cool. So all good.
Cool. A lot of questions related on those, but please continue.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So I've been in the SharePoint space for a long time. It dated all the way back to 2003, where I was given a workshop to basically, because I was an ASP.NET developer at the time, I was given the Microsoft official workshop, which was about 4 sheets of paper, and told to deliver it. I'm like, I have no idea what this is.
Sure, why not? How hard can it be, right?
Yeah. Well, it's clearly about sharing, right? So
exactly. So yeah, quite a learning curve, and I managed to deliver a workshop, and I wish I could go back in time and just say, hey, everything I told you was wrong. This is actually what it is.
Things evolved, right?
Yeah.
Let's keep it that way.
Exactly. So we started a training company, and that was back in 2003, and then in 2007 I formed Lightning Tools, really because lots of people came to me in the developer training classes saying, why can't SharePoint do this? Why can't SharePoint do that? And so on. And we had the idea of, well, actually, let's start building some of these things. And of course, back then, it was building full trust ASP.NET type solutions.
BDC MetaMan, was that the thing?
Yeah, so that was our very first product. Yeah, BDC MetaMan.
15 years and still top of mind. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So that was our key product.
Before we go there, so I need to do a quick. This is Good Friday Bob quiz though. What was the namespace of the server side components and objects for PDC?
Is that for me to answer?
Yep.
Application registry.
You are absolutely correct.
Of course
never
it was.
Knew.
I mean,
I never knew.
Yes. Because it was a business data connectivity services, and then I changed that to BCS, which afterwards, but before it was actually released, it was called application registry, and therefore the server-side code was under that namespace. And see, Britt passed the test. So
you will get a cable for a toaster. The toaster comes afterwards.
Fantastic. Yeah, so BDC MetaMan was our very first product, and one of the other challenges that nearly everybody that came on a training course asked about was cross-site collection aggregation. So back then there was the content query part. So so we that's what led to the Lightning Conductor, which was the cross-site collection roll-up tool, which is what it did back then, and it really has changed dramatically now. It's not actually just rolling up lists and libraries. That's one of the things it does, but it actually works mostly with Graph now. So we're pulling in Planner and To-Do and OneDrive documents, etc., and building reports on that sort of content. So, but still, same kind of idea, building reports on aggregated content, which is great. So,
you've been around for a long time, and you've seen things go from like back in days when you would get the binder with DVDs on MSDN and install them on your box to nowadays the cloud. Like, how do you see the way things change, and how does that affected you being an ISV?
Yeah, so I think, as with a lot of people, actually, when when the cloud started kicking off, it was like, I can't imagine this. It was really difficult to even imagine like backups to the cloud and things like that. In fact, I used to deliver training on the A+ curriculum. Do you remember the A+ stuff? So it's like A+ hardware and A+ software and A+ networking and things like that.
No.
It was an organization called CompTIA, and lots of people getting certified in that, especially if you were sort of new to the IT industry and so on. And I remember reading this chapter that in the courseware that said, one day we're going to have on-demand television. I was like, that's crazy.
No way, that's impossible. So I will demand a DVD, and then I will order it online, and somebody will bring it to my home like they do.
Yes.
Yeah, so to imagine, software going in that direction as well. Yeah. And I think, in the early days, of course, of Office 365, we saw some challenges where it wasn't quite there in terms of what you could do with the product versus SharePoint on premises. You had a lot less control over that, and certainly as an ISV, we suffered from delivering the functionality that people had expected of our products. So and there's still a little bit of that today, but not anywhere near as much as there was. I mean, there were certain things like cross-site collection rollup that we just couldn't do when Office 365 came out. It was almost impossible.
Except with search, right?
We had to use search. Exactly, and that just made it more complex and so on as well, because we were about delivering tools for the business user, so they weren't there with the knowledge of being able to set up result sources and manage properties and all the rest.
You mean
of it.
like no-code, low-code things?
Exactly that. I'm sure you get lots of feedback.
No code at all, just clicking around, right?
Exactly. But now we can. So yeah, we've got a lovely interface to the Lightning adapter and so on. You can aggregate content extremely easily through the graph, through search, or through the client-side object model and so on. So that's good. So yeah, things definitely changed. And like you say, you used to get those big packs of CDs and DVDs and install from there. Now you don't have to. You can just spin up your environment. And
how do you see from a partner perspective? We talked about this one probably last time as well. But the let's say the partner opportunities, is it now then less? Is it more? Is it what does the transition has done for the partner opportunities and the partner ecosystem?
Yeah. So I think the Microsoft Partner Program has got stronger from our point of view, and mostly through direct relationships like this. It's great that you think of Lightning Tools and you think of me and bring me onto a show like this and so on. I think that type of engagement is really super useful. And of course, the MVP program has also helped with that, not necessarily just the Microsoft MVP. The Microsoft Partner Program.
Yep.
I'm interested to see what sort of direction it will go in for ISVs, if I'm honest, based on the fact that the partner program is changing, and when you look at the new categories and so on, it's like where do we sit, because we're not actually selling Microsoft software. We're not in that business. We're selling our own software, so we're not going to be gaining points for a company using Microsoft 365 or using Azure or anything like that, and that can be quite challenging even on submitting apps to the App Store. Because there's things like the attestation questionnaires and so on. It's mostly, we're almost not fitting into that category from somebody that's building SharePoint framework tools based on the fact that we're not really a SaaS company. We're not hosting anything, and this question is coming up all the time. So we're ticking those boxes saying not applicable, not applicable, not applicable, and then you have to explain why.
Because it's hard to understand. Typical ISVs obviously host their application by themselves in AWS or Azure or whatever, but you don't actually do that. Is that a benefit for you anyway?
Yes. Yeah, it's a huge benefit, and we often stop our customers in the tracks because they're like, can you send over your data protection policy and blah, 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 blah. And they want to know what InfoSec we have and so on as a company. It's like, can we just stop you there? Because it's all irrelevant. All of this data is going to sit inside your Microsoft 365 tenant, and you're in charge of all of that. So,
Brilliant.
And is that a real thing, or is that more imaginary thing? Does that come up? Is that a real kind of is that even a benefit for you for your offerings?
In terms of them storing the data, absolutely, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, it is a huge benefit, but it's something that they're not expecting, and I think that is the challenge. So they almost don't know what to do with us. It's like, what questionnaire do we give Lightning Tools then?
We have got at you, but there's nothing to do. We have got it.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's even physical security questions about our data center. It's like, we've got an office, it's a barn, it's on a farm.
How safe is it, Brett? How safe is that barn actually, Brett?
If you're scared of cows and sheep, you're not going to come near the place at night.
Do you have a cat? Do you have a cat?
We do have a cat.
There
Yeah.
you go. That's the boss. Yes, taken care of. So security done.
Exactly right. So yeah, that's an interesting one. But
that is an interesting actually scenario, and that's actually something what does not necessarily even internally always Microsoft people understand the difference between the fact that you're actually the code is running within the customer tenant, which is a huge benefit for customers as well, and also. I guess it's a high benefit for you because the operational cost for you is like
Zero.
Doesn't exist.
There is none.
Exactly right.
There is nothing to host, nothing to maintain, backup, DR, like none of that. Like it's all there, right?
Yeah, correct. And the way that we can deliver updates, we do actually update a package separately every 4 months per product, so that the customer can make the choice whether they want to upgrade or not, and so on. But there is that massive benefit also of having the CDN if we do want to make some urgent changes or anything like that to the software we can do. So yeah, like you say, the way that we can deliver updates and everything is
but
super.
I mean, like even with that, right, there's no operational cost in a sense of compute serverless. Like the cost you have to store JavaScript is like pennies, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And the data
right.
remains in a customer channel. Yeah, that's actually really good.
The bill. Like it's like 0.02 pennies.
yeah, absolutely right. So
now, how does Lightning Tools actually find customers? So are you using the store, the app stores, and all of that?
We do. Yeah. So we do use the App Store. I think, as you mentioned before you hit record, we don't sell the software that way. So it's in the store as free with an in-app purchase type deal. So they get the full trial experience from the store, and then they get the license key from us through conversations. And to be honest, I don't even think it's related to the store, this because in fact this came up with our website today. We were in conversation with an agency about how they could help us and so on, integrate e-commerce into our website because they noticed we didn't have it and so on. It's like, well, we've been there, it doesn't work for us because people buy on purchase order. We're business to business. They're not going to download something from the store and put in credit card details to buy it. It's just not happening. So they tend to go through quite a long-winded sales process in order to actually acquire the software. So it suits us to not have e-commerce on the website, and most of the time, even if people do download from the store, they're reaching out to our sales team to get a quotation, be invoiced, and so on as well. So I don't think it really has anything to do with the pricing models or the structure or anything like that. I think just
it's more on B2B business works like that,
correct.
and it has worked like that since, let's say, early dawn of your company as an example. So when was it? 71, 72? No, just
it's been 84 years.
84 years, yes. It's always 84 years. I don't.
Yes, it is.
That may be a reference to some movie. Anyway.
I'm meant to know that movie, aren't I?
That's a Lost Polly track. Perfect. Which gives me a chance to switch gears a little. So you mentioned also you are an MVP. I wonder, can you tell us a little about like how does that influence your ability to like be or like how did you get there? Because like being an MVP, you can do in so many ways. So how did you get to be an MVP? And once you became it, what has changed?
So back in 2007, I was nominated to be an MVP for the first time. And I chose that year to move to the States. So I moved there and lived there for 3 years. And actually, during the nomination process, I got emailed by the MVP lead in the States in the UK, and said, we can't award you the MVP because you're no longer in the UK. So I got lost in the system somewhere, and I kept getting nominated. Apparently, people were telling me they'd nominated me, but I never actually got any notifications. And I think I was just big red X against my name or something. It's like, he moved. He relocated. So there. So it wasn't until 5 years ago, so 2018, where I actually got awarded for the first time. And I'll honestly say
it's a long time to find you.
Yes. But now he did move back to UK, right? So
there you go, and that's why. Finally.
Yeah. So they just didn't know what to do with me. But anyway, so nothing's really changed as to what I do. I went to one of the first. In fact, I back in 2003, I think, is when we founded the SharePoint User Group UK. It wasn't me that founded it, but I was involved in it. I spoke at the very first session. That was actually doing what was I doing? It was like an ASP type thing, and building a first web part using user controls. That was it. I was building a web part using user control.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So that was my session. Yeah.
Smart part. Yes. Smart part. Yes.
Yeah. I think that came later, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That was in 2007. So.
Yeah. So that's the very first session, and then I was involved with the user group quite a lot. I went to a SharePoint Saturday in Tampa when I moved to Florida. And I was like, the UK needs this. So we did a SharePoint. We hosted SharePoint Saturday UK for several years, and that's evolved now into doing Collab Days, which is part of the Collab Summit at Addis Hugo's sort of family of events. And one of the things that we did is actually the MVP lead here in the UK that introduced me to the National Museum of Computing, and this was at the start of the pandemic as well. So being a museum, they were in a very difficult position. They're based on Bletchley Park, where
that's cool.
Alan Turing cracked the Enigma code and all that sort of stuff. So you can all those huts and everything that you saw on the film, they're there. You can walk past them and so on. They're so sort of unchanged from the 40s. But they were in a difficult position because they still had to meet their the museum had to meet their costs in terms of rent and so on. And Bletchley Park wouldn't give them a break on any of that, unfortunately. So of course they had no footfall going into the museum, no contributions from anybody, and yet they were having to house computers such as Colossus and the Bomb and all these 40s machines that were used, and they were in place where the code was actually cracked back in the day. So even if they moved to new premises, it wouldn't have that same meaning.
Yeah.
Claire Smith, the MVP lead, actually invited Jackie Garrard, who's the museum director, onto a sort of lunch and learn type session that we have here in the UK, and it was a big cry for help. It's like we need some companies to try and keep us alive and help us to keep the museum open and so on. So we made some contributions based on some of the things that they were doing for the community themselves. They were helping children with autism and young adults who couldn't get jobs and things like that to learn IT. And one of the things they had a shortage of was actually computers to use. So modern computers that they could teach programming on. So we just got a bunch of Raspberry Pis, and that was our contribution at the time. But then I had this idea of, well, rather than giving all this money to a conference center or a hotel or something to host a Collab Days, why don't we host it at the museum, and whatever they get from the sponsorship just goes to the museum. And so we've been doing that, and
very nice. That's so nice.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So they've been able to do a great deal with that that money, that contribution, and so on. And I got involved also as a mentor. So we were doing some mentoring with young children, basically, who just wanted to get into IT. And there's some good stories, like there was a 13-year-old girl who wanted to do or study computer science at GCSE level, and she didn't get that elective. The class was full, so she couldn't at her school. So she was one of the people that was actually just turning up at the museum on a Sunday to learn. And these were the people that we were just sort of helping to teach. And it was incredible. So some of them were just doing, they were young kids, about 6 or 7. They were learning Minecraft and things like that. Others were doing Python and so on. So it's just really helping them out and what have you. And there's some great stories coming out of that and where they've gotten to today. So
wow, really cool.
The latest event on there, that was like a few weeks back, wasn't it? So can you talk about a bit on what was covered and what for those who wouldn't know, what is Collab Days? So what is covered within these meetings? It's a secret society to.
Yes, they have a handshake, special knock on the door. If you don't know it, you will not be able to be in.
Yes,
that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. So Collab Summit was founded by Ed Hugo, as mentioned. So that's something that started off in Croatia and so on, and he brought it over to Germany. I guess 3 or 4 years ago. Oh, but actually maybe a bit longer than that. And now it's grown considerably to a really large event. It's fantastic to go to. So they have speakers covering pretty much all of the Microsoft 365 stuff. So there's Azure, there's Power Platforms, Viva, etc. And that also is a sister event to the Collab Summit North America, which is run by Mark Rackley. So that is held in the middle of nowhere somewhere. Nobody ever knows where it is, but
Branson,
that's it. Yeah. So you can go to Branson and attend that one. But they actually started Collab Days, which is a more regional event, and it's typically 1 day long, as opposed to several days. So that's what we've been doing in UK. There's also one in Lisbon that's just taken place as well. And I see a few popping up in New England and places like that too. So, it's just like what a SharePoint Saturday was, really. So speakers are turning up, they're delivering the content around Microsoft 365, usually 1 hour sessions on various different subjects, and the costs are met by bringing sponsors in. So, of course, they're getting to speak to the attendees, promote their products and services and so on, but they're making a contribution to the community to make that happen for free for the attendees.
Yeah, exactly. Which is a nice way of actually continuing the high success of SharePoint Saturdays, which were insanely successful worldwide at some point. So, and of course, as the product evolves, we now have Microsoft 365 all up Teams and Viva and everything else. Calling it SharePoint Saturday is not really
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, I don't think that did it. It would have been great if we could have just changed that name, but
sure.
That would have helped.
Yeah, that's fair. Now coming back on the day-to-day work and the offerings and everything else, you've started with a SharePoint and you had a SharePoint offering. Is your products only for SharePoint and then consulting for product Power Platform, or is the company also evolving? What about Viva? Is there anything on the Viva side? What about Teams? Any opportunities
Power
there?
Platform. And what else is there? List. What else do we have?
So some of the products are very specific towards SharePoint. So we have, in partnership with Skybo, we have Lightning Forms, which is the modern form designer. So that comes up against Power Platform quite a bit, of course, with Power Apps and sometimes a bit of Power Automate, but different kind of audience in a way. So these people working directly with SharePoint lists and they want to build business forms and so on. So that very much is SharePoint. We also have Social Squared, and this is quite this one has an interesting story. So if you remember back to what the discussion list was like inside of SharePoint back in 2007 and I think 2003 as well.
You mean social? No, the
thing. The thing.
Discussion list.
The discussion list that we had.
To trade. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So back then, it was back in 2007, we were using Stack Overflow and so on. We're like, this is what the discussion list needs to be inside of SharePoint. So that's what we created. We called it Social Squared. So we built out Social Squared. And when we got to Microsoft Teams on the horizon and so on, it's like, I think Social Squared's going to die. It's not going to be a great product when people can create teams and they can have discussions in there and so on. You've got all the features going on in there. And I can remember actually in one of the dev meetings that you run, we demonstrated how we'd taken Social Squared and made it work in Teams. And there was a few comments.
Wasn't that part of the keynote in 2018? Yes, it was. Yes,
exactly. So at the time it's like, okay, we just did this just to be able to take one of our SPFX apps and put it into Teams, and didn't really expect much to happen as a result. And even then there were some questions like, why have you created a social tool inside a social tool? so it's like, right, whatever. But that product has taken off considerably in Teams.
Cool.
Yeah, it's been amazing, because the challenge that people are meeting is when they're using the posts tab is being able to find questions that somebody may have just asked a question like, how do I do this? I'm a new starter inside this company. How do I make an expense claim or whatever it might be? And that just goes off the radar with the posts tab, as it would do in an email or something. So when you've got the discussion board structure going on inside a tab, now it makes sense that any sort of human resource related questions, I'd go to that forum group and I'm likely to find the answer that I'm looking for there, and so on. So it's just the structure of how a discussion board works that has really helped us, and it's really taken off in Teams more so than it has in SharePoint. It's been a great story. So,
which kind of makes sense, because again, right now, at least currently, if you think about Teams, like you said, it's basically a discussion feed which goes forward, and then going back in history, it's actually incredibly hard.
It's the same experience as you would have on IRC, right? It's just like unstructured. It's just like one infinite page of stuff. Like finding something in there, that's almost impossible, right? So again, having that topic-based threads, I think that is invaluable.
Yeah, and then you've got the moderators and so on that you can assign to each forum and so on.
That, right? So like relevance aspect of it,
Exactly. So again, we started to dabble when adaptive cards came along and Viva Connections dashboards and so on. It's like, all right, so what can we do here? So Social Squared became the obvious choice again, and we thought, well, what you might have is just want to see what's the latest post, or what are the latest posts that people are asking about, or what's getting the trend in terms of discussions and so on. So similar to what you would have with Viva Engage and someone showing up in the connection. So we've implemented that. I don't think there's that many people that are aware of it just yet. Probably we haven't shouted about it enough, but I think that's something that will materialize more.
It's really interesting to hear from you, like how you take the fact that we keep evolving things at Microsoft, and you kind of use it like, hey, like what does that mean for us? How can we benefit from that, as opposed to, well, it's a different thing, we need to, right? So I wonder, how do you stay on top of everything that's new, everything that's coming, so that you can see these new things that benefit you?
The interesting thing, Brett, is that you seem to be super excited on those new opportunities, and it's not like everybody is, because we always also get the feedback on, well, now Microsoft is eating up our business there, or it's impacting our business because they're building new stuff there, and rather than being negative about that innovation, you seem to be approaching this in a bit different perspective. Why is that? Is that a personal trait, or what's?
Maybe. I mean, the reason why we created Lightning Tools, going back to that earlier question, was I can see the frustration that people were having with SharePoint. The fact that you can't do something in SharePoint was getting in the way of actually them being successful with SharePoint, and that's what drove us to build the products. It wasn't about what can we create that's going to make money. That wasn't any part of the discussion. It's like, all right, lots of people are finding it challenging to do this stuff. Whether it's creating BDC models or whether it's aggregating across different site collections or whatever. So let's help them, and that's really the driver. So if we could help them to be able to build these reports. I mean, even some of the things that you would consider to be relatively easy as a developer, in terms of querying the graph or something like that and building a report on that, it's not easy for the business user. They don't get that. So that's where we thought, well, there's an opportunity for the Lightning Conductor. Let's make that simple. So that's really been the driver, and I think if one of the challenges that you would find with something like Social Squared was knowing to go to what team again. So where do I go to see this discussion board? So if it's highlighting some of those conversations up in Viva Connections, that's going to again help the customer. So we're just trying to create the best product that we can, really, and that's going to help them. So I'm always excited to see what's on the horizon with Microsoft, and some of it is not necessarily that relevant to us, but there's certain things that you think, I'm going to jump on that.
So we need to close up on the pretty soon. But what would be the most exciting things what you have seen coming out of Microsoft within the last 6 months?
Or what is the next thing you will be in?
So I'm really excited to see where Viva goes. I think there's a lot of things that really sort of resonate with me as a business leader, if you like. So I've done a lot of work with myself and a business coach in being able to create, a really good experience for my team. And I think the way Viva has approached that really directly aligns with it. So we're actually implementing Viva goals and things like that at the moment as well for our company. And as we're doing that, I'm seeing opportunities for products where we can expand either our existing tool set or even creating new tools as well. I'm keeping an eye on that. Also, a lot more effort is going into sort of Teams development versus SharePoint development as well, since that's what people are using all day long now. So,
Yep.
Interesting.
And of course, those are not kind of declining between each other, because you can surface the SharePoint inside of the Teams as well. But again,
correct.
So
yes.
Yeah. But is it actually related on Viva and the Teams and everything else? Is it easier to have the Viva discussion with your audience than having the Teams discussion related on extensibility? It's just that I'm thinking the audience which we're having the discussion, because Viva resonates with the business people, like you said, rather than IT necessarily extending on Teams, or any thoughts on the demand or interest related on extensibility in both sides?
I don't know. I guess I'm a bit surprised with. I've not seen that much drive yet for Viva that I would have expected to see personally, but maybe that's we're not known for that space yet. Maybe that's something that we'll become known for.
And it's a relatively new thing still. So
it is new. A lot of people are still finding their feet with it. I think from a ISV perspective, the adaptive cards are perhaps the most obvious way where we can deliver something at the moment. I think the API, or if there was an API, we could probably do more with it too, in terms of reporting and so on, and that's something we can't do. Social Squared, for example, it would be good to see if we could actually integrate that with some of the Viva offerings too. So if, for example, somebody created a post inside of Social Squared, it'd be good to maybe see that through Viva Insights and so on, and maybe extend it,
or learn. Maybe
exactly.
There's also a link to it. Definitely.
Yeah. So I think at the moment our hands are tied on that one, but
for now,
for now.
Yep. There's always ideas in a roadmap.
Hold you to that one, Vesa.
Let me write that to the roadmap. Anyway.
Homework.
Yes. Cool. And then any tips for anybody who's been kind of there's actually two questions. Any tips for anybody who's like a partner looking into, okay, so I want to start building my offerings for cloud. Any kind of, where should they start? Any tips from your side? You've been doing this for a while.
That's a fantastic question. And I think I'll go back to what I said a moment ago was about our offerings being a genuine offer for help inside that environment. You do see some components in the store where it's like, why would I want to use that? And maybe that's just me. I wouldn't want to use it, but
it's a weather part. Come on.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So why would I want a weather web part on my?
Yeah,
my
everybody wants it. No idea why, but it just must be there.
I think number one sample, by the way, for SPFX, which was created by Waldek, and surprise, surprise, it was a weather web part.
Okay, there we go. but yes, that's really what we do is we do fill gaps, help to make people more efficient and so on. So even like down to permission reporting, that can be very time consuming for site owners and so on to be able to build a permission report. And by the time they've done it, it's out of date. So being able to offer help in that way is really where we're coming from. So that's the first question that we ask ourselves when we come up with a new product idea.
Yep.
So I think, get that vision right on what that product is and what is it actually going to really genuinely offer as value.
Yeah, which is because that's going to then help with the customer discussions and yeah, absolutely. Anyway, I guess that's it for now. Well, your plans for next week are pretty. We typically ask what's going to happen next week, but it's pretty obvious for you and me what's going to happen next week. So
yeah,
we can recap on that. So what's going to happen for you next week or this week?
Yeah. So
which Lego sets are you going to give away?
I should have grabbed that. It's just in the next room to me. It's behind this wall. But we've got the new McLaren F1 Lego set. So that's our prize.
So I might drop by at your booth with the masks on.
Multiple times.
So exactly.
Multiple times.
Please do. That'd be great. But also, we talked about Social Squared. So that is up for the award at the European SharePoint Conference next week for the most innovative app for Microsoft 365. So, of course, it's a runner-up. There's 3 apps there. So we're fingers tightly crossed that we might win that one. So
cool.
Very cool.
I hope so anyway.
And you have a booth of course in the expo area. Just to recap on that one. So the Lego set is going to be shared by you on Thursday maybe? Or
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. So come and visit at the Lightning Tools booth, and we've got lots of different swag, and it's going to be cold there. So we've got woolly hats, we've got gloves, and
the racing sim.
We're not going to take the racing sim next week. No. We did have it last week.
Racing car.
That's the most easiest way to get me to your booth, like multiple times in a day. Is that here's the sim. So I'll just do one more.
It is addictive.
Yeah. Now, Waldek, what are you doing next week?
Enjoying the silence. Well, so from the US, everybody will be many folks will be back at work, but then some of the European folks will be off. So it's kind of going to be mixed back. Like, this is going to be a full week or not. But it's running up towards the end of the year. So trying to recap some of the work that I've done, but also still, I've got more ideas than hours in a day. So trying to squeeze some time to do some more stuff.
Fantastic.
That's always the challenge, because so many ideas. What if we would And for me, of course, I'll be in ESPC starting actually Sunday, so should be good. And I don't know why I took the flight already on Sunday in, but hey, I'll drop by in Paolo's SPFX workshop on Monday and do a jet lag. Yes. 1.5 hours flight, So, but that should be good. So hopefully seeing a lot of people from community. This recording is getting live on Tuesday as the ESPC is ongoing. So this basically, if you're watching this, you still have 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, available to drop by, and we'll be walking around with Vincent Vegas. Exactly. And if you're watching this later, we will maybe update who won the Lego into social media at some point. So,
sounds good.
Anyway.
Fantastic.
But thank you, Brett, for joining, and thank you, Waldek, and we'll jump on the weekly articles right after this interview. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you, Brett, one more time. Really cool to catch up, and looking forward on seeing you next week in Copenhagen, actually. So it should be really good. Oh, this week, as this is getting recorded, or in the past, if you're watching and listening this after the week of Copenhagen 2022. So.
How was it?
It was awesome. Yes, hopefully it was awesome. So we'll see how it goes. Of course, expectations are super high, and it's cool to be. So a year ago in December, we had the European Collaboration Summit happening in Düsseldorf, which it was really interesting situation. There was a lot of discussions because there was sparks of COVID outbreaks again in Europe exactly on that week. So a lot of people needed to cancel, and that did change the mental mindset of the conference a bit, because you were basically wearing masks with the people all the time. You had that mental mindset is that, okay, do we have a bigger problem now again or not? So now we're in a bit better situation because of vaccinations and all of that stuff, and people are a bit more free on communications. But we'll see how it goes next week. So hopefully European Collaboration Summit in spring 2023 will be as relaxed as in the past, and this will be good in Copenhagen as well. So anyway, should we jump on the articles?
Let's do that. About
let's
time.
do that. Yes, exactly. So, yeah, what's this? Yeah, let's do this in 15 minutes. So, yeah. So anyway,
15 minutes later.
Exactly, we are starting the articles. Now, first of all, we updated or shared the update on the top 10 most used SharePoint framework solutions from the store, and this basically statistics on people acquiring solutions from the app source or from a SharePoint store built with SharePoint framework. Now, some of these solutions are for Microsoft Viva Connections, and some of them are for Microsoft Teams, and some of them are for SharePoint. And we do know, based on discussions with Pret as well, actually this week, that a lot of the ISVs do not intentionally actually use the store. Its store is just a way of getting exposure, and then they sell outside of the store as well. So it's either way. Both options are fine. We're here to help whatever is your chosen path. But in here we had a typical set of 10 quite typical partners who are in the top 10 list, and we do this intentionally every single month, basically because, well, they're betting on our technology. Why not promote our friends? So thank you for ISVs on that. Then we had a Add to Try Intro-Zone podcast.
Exactly. So another episode of the podcast from Mark. This time around talking about OneDrive, and I think that there are, if I understand correctly, there are some new cool features in yes. OneDrive. And it's about syncing versus adding a shortcut. Like I think that would spark discussion that they had on the podcast to learn more about which direction you would choose and what are the different options are to eventually be able to more easily find the files you put there.
Yeah, and I have to say that, so of course I'm from a OneDrive SharePoint organization, so I'm kind of closely involved in what's happening in OneDrive as well. And the OneDrive consumer starts looking insanely good. It's just the photo syncing, photo sharing, all of those features. It's getting better and better. And there was a intentional. Maybe I'm already spilling some of the beans. I don't know. There was as Google was shutting down some of the photo services, there was an intentional bet on starting to improve areas in the OneDrive consumer, which is very, very cool. Now,
well, and I guess it's also now, it is the right time where people get together, see family members. Yep. What is the first thing that you do? Show pictures.
Yes.
So it makes perfect sense. Like now is the right time where people will, get together around a table, pull up a device, if at all, right? And what you will do then? Look at pictures.
Yeah, so
whether it's your kids or cats or dogs.
Related on family stories. So we used to have a yearly book done for our kids. Basically pictures what's happened in the last year, and that was given to grandparents as a gift for Christmas. And we stopped doing that when he went to school, like when he got to 7. And now, as we were chatting earlier this year, on so what I wish for Christmas, and kids' wish was that we would actually have those books again. So now we're recreating 3 of them or 4 of them, and continue doing that, of course, in the future. Which says, and having really the OneDrive sync, you have the pictures in save. Yeah, they're basically now saving.
But it's also insane. Like if I look back, at pictures of my kids when they were younger, like 3-4 years back, I don't recall any of that. Like it's like, wow, they were so small.
Yeah,
the pictures are really invaluable for that, right? And the fact that we can easily have them available with us, and you can really get back in time at any point wherever you are. That's really awesome.
Yep, absolutely. The only challenge is almost like too many pictures and cleaning up things. So the next article was the Outlook REST API v2 and beta deprecation update. So we did announce deprecation of the Outlook API v2 endpoint. Was it on 2021 or November 2020? It says actually that on the blog post. See, reading helps. You learn things. But the intention was that we would stop supporting Outlook REST API. It's basically now already deprecated. Deprecation means that we are not investing on it anymore, and you should not be betting that to be there in the future. The intention was that we would actually stop supporting this API in November 2022, which is right now. But that deadline has been now pushed forward, so we don't have an exact updated date. There will be at least 6 months notice period before the enforcing or block of the endpoint in the future. But the date is not yet set. It's going to be in 2023, apparently, is the plan now.
We've got an article from Altamish, and he shares with us a few PowerShell scripts around booking. And these scripts are really cool because they show you how you can automate the access to bookings using the Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK, right? So these are snippets that you could run as is, or you could incorporate them in bigger automation scripts that you build. So if you're in this area, if you do some of work in this space, check them out because they might help you save some time.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, we also had an update from Amitabh Ayub, around 7 new verified connectors and 7 updates released in October 2022. And these are basically the connectors for the Power Platform. Because in Power Platform, you cannot just randomly hit an API. You are actually having... Well, okay, you could.
It's not the easiest way, really,
yes,
to be honest.
Yes, exactly. So then you have the connectors, which are basically the way of getting the information more efficiently for your Power Platform. And that's why the connectors are important. And there's a updated set of available connectors. So thank you for that work as well on the Power Platform side. Then we had an update on Power Platform Developer Tool.
Exactly. So update from Kartik about developer tools for Power Platform and what's new and what's changed. So there are things around auth, about solution packing, Azure DevOps, and GitHub Actions, right? So more and more features supporting, I would say, more advanced scenarios to build on top of Power Platform, right? So it's really cool for us to see being more welcoming towards devs and supporting more advanced scenarios that go beyond building a flow or a Power app.
Yes, absolutely. It's clearly cool to see the maturity of the Power Platform. It gets better and better every single month, and great communications, by the way, on the updates as well. So
definitely.
Now, we also had an update. This is actually going to be flipped the date. We had a bit of a challenge yesterday on our blog, so the date's not correct. It should be 25th, so it is today as we're recording this. We had a November 2022 update on the Microsoft 365 platform community, and this is the classic summary on what has happened within the past X amount of time. We're promoting this in the multiple channels, but bit of a change in the script right now, focusing mainly on the actual people, so who've been involved from the community around our community efforts, so sharing samples, blog posts, videos, presentations, and all of that, and of course still focusing on making sure that people know where they can find the latest samples, script samples, code samples, and how to get verified. So which is really cool. Not verified. How do you get recognition? How do you get recognized? Now, related on that one, on the recognition program and the Microsoft 365 platform community recognition program, we did actually release a new batch of Season of Kidding, which is a nice word game. So related on this one, as an example, SunUp actually has received this correctly stamp. But basic idea here is that as long as if you are contributing during November and December timeframe in 2022, you will get an additional badge, Season of Kidding. It's a nice play with the words for sure, as an award for being actively involved within the community. So, and we're seeing already numerous people actually getting this. So thank you for that.
Very nice.
Now, I have to maybe one more time to say this, because the October was the October Hacktoberfest, right? And that was insanely successful. So we had a lot of engagement worldwide. Thank you for that. Then it's like, okay, now it's season of holiday season. What do we don't want to actually just have hackathon and October. We want to have something on this season as well. So
definitely.
And that's where the season is getting us coming
throughout the year. So I guess
exactly.
Probably also include some other things too. And I have a visitor.
There we go.
Him up.
Is it a Mr. or Mrs.?
A Mr.
Mr. Yes, the actual
on
chief.
The PnP Weekly.
Yes.
Say wow.
So what's your thoughts on the community? No comments. What's your?
He's pouring. He's going in like.
Yeah, exactly.
Really cool.
Yes. There we go. But yeah, and on the by the way, on the batches. So of course, if you contribute anywhere throughout the year, you will get the basic batches as well. But the season of kidding is something special for the end of this year, and then we're looking into doing special months for the spring as well. So really cool. Looking forward on people being more actively involved. Absolutely. Good. Then Bart Hamann had a cool blog post related on Microsoft Teams tabs.
Exactly, right. And when you build a team set, right, there's a way for you to show the native indicator that your app is loading.
Yep.
Right. And how you can do that in SPFX, how you can use the same option. So this is really an interesting thing to kind of improve the user experience of your app and make it more responsive in a way.
Yep.
And this, so is this no? So
it's
this,
not
this
specific
isn't-
for SPFX. No,
Exactly.
no.
So
it's
this isn't about
for
SPFX,
any
sorry.
Teams
Yeah.
application, which is actually good.
A
This is
custom
actually
tab, yeah.
But it's as simple as having that loading true. So if there is a wait time,
a piece of code. Oh yeah, and then a piece of code. Well, yeah, you also need to communicate to teams that your app is active now, because otherwise
now I'm loaded.
Always
yeah, exactly. Now I'm good. Let's continue.
I'm ready.
So, yes, that's really cool. Thank you, Bartman, on that one. Really cool. Now, Agnes Molnar had a blog post related on news items in Microsoft Search. So basically, how can we access the news items? How can we show the news items and how they're being identified and what we can do with that information? So really cool, clarification on how we can detect the news items. Now, as she's calling out, the logical thing for any, let's say, experienced SharePoint person would be that the news items are actually differentiated with the content types. Unfortunately, however, that's not the case. So it's based on this promoted state status, which is a bit of a confusing thing. And then that causes the implementation of surfacing just news, for example, in search, a bit more complicated. But again, luckily, it is well concluded and well clarified here as well.
Exactly. I mean, as long as you know that is the way to go about it, you can adjust the way you think and implement this, right? It's not like it is impossible, right? Like the option is there, and if you've worked with search and content types, you might expect it to be the same way. It isn't, but now you at least know how it works.
Yep, absolutely, 100%. Now, Martin Links to it had a blog post as well
about using custom certificates when debugging SPFX apps, right? So
what is a custom certificate? I don't understand.
Very good. Which is exactly why you should read the article, so then you will learn, right? So basically the idea is, right, that you build an SPFX app and you want to debug the local version you're working on. It needs to be served from HTTPS, right? So it needs to go over SSL because you're going to test it in the context of a SharePoint site. Right, that is served from HTTPS, and if you would serve it from HTTP, it wouldn't load in browser because it will be mixed, right? So HTTP doesn't load inside HTTPS because it isn't safe, right? So to have that end-to-end safe experience, it needs to be on HTTPS, but for that, it needs a certificate, right? So you might want to use your own so that you don't need to every single time except this one, or ensure things like expiration dates or retrusted. And maybe that's also something that you used for all the different apps you build, not just in SPFX. So you have one, how would you use it in context of SPFX? And if you want to know more about that, check out this article.
Yeah, and coming back on of course the gulp-charge dev search command is super easy to use, but when you're using a Docker or dev containers, it gets a bit more complicated because you're not in the context of your computer, you're in the context of that virtualization box, which is the
command runs inside
container,
but the browser is on your host, so you cannot trust from inside container certificate on your host. That doesn't work, right? So Inception.
It's complicated. Inception indeed. Now, Paolo Pialorsi had an updated video. He's back. He had 1 week when he didn't have a video. This is unheard of. Just true. So episode 231, what's new in the SharePoint Framework 1.16, and in here it's good 5-minute video. He walks through the different scenarios, different updates, also with live demos on certain the things. For example, detecting, are you in a Office, Outlook, or in Teams, or in SharePoint? Well, that's unknown host, but anyway, so understanding on which host you're actually being accessing the information. That's really cool. Thank you. Thank you. I'm saying Waldek, Paolo. But you look so almost like the same.
Yeah, you keep doing that. I don't know why. Like, what's in your brain made you connect us?
Then we had a new video from Shane.
Exactly. How can you create a calendar view with a model-driven Power App? Apparently you can, and who knew you could? So
Yes.
if you need to do that, check out this video to learn more.
Yep, absolutely. And that's with you and Sebastian as a visitor in the show as well. Now, we also had a new video for Giuliano De Luca on how to use the new webinar experience in Microsoft Teams, a bit more end-user driven scenario, an administrative scenario, but really, really cool video as well. And Giuliano is having great explanations on how things are working on a weekly basis as well. Thank you, Giuliano, on that. Cool. I guess that's it for now.
It is.
So, Paolo, what's your last thoughts? No.
Let's think, like this. We already went together with Brad. What you will be doing this week?
Yes.
One thing I didn't mention is that we're releasing version 6, new major version of CLI from Microsoft 365. It's been in works for a few months, 3, 4, maybe even 5 months already now. So because it's a new major version, we took the liberty to break a few things, but we worked for so long basically to give everybody enough time and notice to update their scripts before they upgrade.
Yep.
Right. So we're going live with it in this week. As this video is published, we're going live. So by the time you watch it, maybe it's already live. So it's really cool milestone for us to reach and to have another major version V6 out there.
Yeah, week after the 5-year celebration, all of that.
Oh,
so
yeah.
really, really cool. So
yeah,
how was the celebration? How was the 5 years? This is a special opportunity. What would be your 3 to 5 tips related on establishing an open source project? What's the most important things?
Communication, consistency, long breath, or maybe long breath and consistency are the same thing. So scaling. Think about a team. Like if you want something to be there for a long time, it needs to be bigger than you, and that involves so many things, like getting out of your head. Like nothing can be in your head. You cannot be the only person who can publish, who can automate, who knows stuff. And at some point, you also need to give away things. Like you need to lose the reins in a way, right? So you need to let others decide.
Let it go.
Take point.
You're free now. You're free. Run.
It's hard, right? Because like, people will make decisions that are different than yours.
Yep.
And it's perfectly fine. It's just, the initial feeling you might get like, oh my God, I don't know everything that's going on. And that's perfectly fine because we have a team that we trust each other, and we know that people are making the best choice. And if it turns out not to be the best choice, well, then we will adjust it. And it's never the end of the world, right? It's always, it is a marathon we're running.
Yes, or ultra marathon. So I'm moving into this ultra marathon example.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I mean, like every single step we take, you might take a misstep, but you can still finish the marathon, right? So in this case, sure, there will be a bug. Well, we fix it. There will be a command that maybe doesn't work optimally with other things. Well, then next year when there is new version, we will make a breaking change, align it, and everything will be fine eventually. So it's really that having that long-term thinking, like that is really key.
Yeah,
there are 2 things, right?
So if we would transform those 3 to be 5, it would be communications, consistency. yes,
communication. Like it's simple, but it's so easily to be underestimated and overlooked because it's trivial, and it often comes down to, but everyone knows, right? Well, guess what? People don't. What's top of mind for you isn't guaranteed top of mind for everyone else, right? Just the fact that we're spending in our team every day in CLI, everybody else don't. They have their work, they have their own things, and they don't. And unless we get out there and tell them not just once, but tell them once and twice and thrice and more, only then we will be able to reach. And even then, there will be still somebody who wasn't around, or it wasn't working on it then, and they are new and they still don't know. And you can beat yourself up for like, how come that people don't? Well, every single day new folks start. So you also need to be mindful of that, and just having that persistence and again, like getting it out there, getting things out of your head, because what makes sense to you is new to everyone else.
Yeah, I think the traditional challenge is always expanding the open source project. The step number one is expanding from a 1 person to 2 and 3. But then the biggest challenge for sure is from extending that to 10 or 20 active persons. That's surprisingly time consuming and overly often not properly done, because you want to actually have that team who feels empowered, independent, and basically ready for making decisions by themselves rather than being dependent on a one person who's, you're the dictator, you need to make decisions. No, you don't want to be that.
Maybe to that point, right? Like you need to empower your team to be able to do that. And for that, you need guardrails, right? You need to tell them not how to, like you basically need to, you cannot decide for them how to make a decision, but you need to empower them in a sense that what are the tenets, the principles that we use, which we operate? Like, what is it that we want to do? Why are we here? How we want to engage with others? What is the way we respond? How do we deal with that? And with these principles, you really empower them and let them learn and experience and grow and get to the point where they can make a decision and they can fully, shine, right? Because they can bring their experience, their person, and add that as a value add to the team and project, right? But only if you help them become a part of the team.
Yeah. So one thing what I've used in the past as well, because we also been in Microsoft for quite a long time, is that when you encourage people, you basically, I've been saying for many times for some people that it's okay, make your decisions. You are more than skilled and understandable for making this. Now, if somebody wants to then attack you, say that it was me supporting that decision, and we'll have a discussion with 3 of us. So you're basically helping to grow that. No, you're independent. You can make the decisions. Confidence.
You build up the confidence. Yeah.
I've never had any problems of any of those things, but people are so hesitant of making decisions, and that's the one thing which we should click in the mind. It's better to make a decision and move forward rather than not make a decision. And so make a decision, communicate moving forward is much more important than, well, I'm hesitant. What if I do a wrong decision? It's okay to do wrong decisions.
Well, I mean, especially in our line of work, at least in the scope that I work, like things can go wrong. So what?
Yes, exactly. We're not in healthcare. We're in a different. It's a completely different.
Also, not building airplanes. Not exactly. Like where you really need to have the high degree of confidence. Yeah.
Anyway, that was a good sidetrack on things. 15 minutes almost.
50, yes.
Cool. Anyway, thank you, Waldek, on this one. Thank you, Brett, and thank you, Mr.
Loki.
Mr. Loki. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Excellent.
The god of mischief.
Yes, the cats are the gods. Absolutely. We have 2 of them, but they are in a super important mission to give taking care of the mother-in-law. So anyway, Loki is pretty relaxed.
Oh yeah, he purrs and like it's insane. Like he falls asleep on my lap as I work. Like we talk and he just asleep. Like
yeah, happy. So
soothing voice.
Exactly. But thanks everybody for joining and listening and watching, and we'll be back with the PnP Weekly within a week. Now, quick word of a warning, hashtag PnP Weekly on the Twitter. We'll probably have a few days off between the holiday season in December to January at some point. We'll
communicate about that in the coming weeks.
Yes,
for absolutely. Now, enjoy the week. Enjoy the conference if you are at ISVs, and we'll see you in a week.
Sounds good. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.